मम देव देव त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव
Good evening and good morning. Let's start with our study circle for today. So, as we know that we are reflecting on the words of Mother and Sri Aurobindo and going through the compilation, one of the compilations by A.S. Dalal with the title Looking from Within. And before we begin, just taking a few moments with ourselves, centering ourselves, and gathering our consciousness, which is so dispersed. The easiest way to do it is by focusing on a mantra, by focusing on a chant, on a breathing. So just being with our breath, centered around our breath for the next 4-5 breaths. Let's make these breaths count with our full attention all the way in and all the way out. Thank you. So invoking Mother's presence and grace as we begin with the session. So looking from within, the seeker's guide to attitude for mastery and inner growth. So we were still going through the introduction. We had read about the outer being. And last week we were talking about, I think, panic and instinct and how those things work. So the physical being, the vital being, the mental being from the outer being, we had covered the 3 parts. And then it said in the introduction, it told us about the psychiatrist Carl Menninger in describing the behavior of human beings when faced with difficulties and obstacles in life, employs concepts which are analogous to the concepts of yoga, psychology mentioned above. So there we had read, how we react coming from what consciousness. I think it was With the vital consciousness, if one has the predominant, if it's vital, we uh, read that, panic is usually what one reacts with. With physical, unless there is panic, the inertia doesn't go away. So we had read that. And then we had spoken about striving. So we had looked through this, and so this was the striving. I'm sorry, I want to zoom in and somehow unable to. Okay. So maybe we can just take a overlap from this and then start with this new. I think this is where we read last time, and striving is what we had to start with. I could be wrong, so we'll just be rereading something which is okay. So I'll start. So in this stage, an individual still living primarily in the vital consciousness struggles against difficulties with the reactions of the vital consciousness, namely instincts and impulses. But instinctive reactions, which serve the animal marvelously well in its struggle for existence, are inadequate guides for a human being because, in the first place, instincts in man are far inferior to those in the animal. And secondly, because the problems which a human being has to tackle are far more complex than those faced by an animal, calling for an intelligence which can see beyond a limited sphere where instincts are proverbially regarded as blind. So we had covered this last time about, how, I guess the center of the instincts also matter a lot. So I will go on in case, unless there's any question, you can unmute and stop me, but I'm just reading from last. Further, it says that moreover, instincts in themselves pose a problem to the human being because of the perpetual conflicts between one instinct and another, and between instinct and reason. Thus, besides being inadequate for helping man in mastering the problem of life, instincts create an additional problem for the human being, the problem of self mastery. So we had read that how the instincts at times contradict, the mind's, I don't know, something coming from the mind would say this, the feeling is saying that. So it just leaves her more confused and sorted. Feelings and emotions, which like instincts also pertain to the vital consciousness, are indeed much more highly developed in the human being than even in the highest species of animal. But they have the same essential drawbacks as instincts. They operate within too narrow a sphere, primarily that of interpersonal relations. And like instincts, they are fraught with conflict. It says that in humans, the feelings and emotions are quite developed. And yet, because, they're usually about, he said this to me, that said this to me, or, I said this to him, or stuff like that, how it's corrupted by the memories and the past and the expectations. So it's saying because of that, instincts, just like instincts, feeling and emotions are also full of conflict. Yeah, so according to me, that's where we had ended. If there's anything, I know you'll unmute and share. Otherwise, I'll move forward. So, moving on, says here, in the stage of striving, during which human beings try to come to grips with the problem of life mastery and self mastery, while still living predominantly in the vital consciousness, life is more or less a blind struggle, a groping towards ill perceived and ever eluding goals. The course of life is determined mostly by forces other than one's conscious choices and deliberate decisions. Therefore, one's internal state is characterized by feelings of right. So just reading what going through what I've just read, it's stuck. I don't know. There's some problem with this document on it. So we had read about panic and inertia and instincts and feeling emotions, and now we are talking about striving. So it says that striving during which human beings try to come to grips with the problem of life mastery and self mastery, right? Like when there are any issues, any problems, we are striving, right? Striving to be more, striving to find some peace, some resolution. So this is, it says that striving is how one tries to come to grip with the problem of life mastery and self mastery, which still, while still living predominantly in the vital consciousness. Life is more or less a blind struggle, a groping towards ill perceived and ever eluding goals. So it's a blind struggle because, firstly, the goals that I'm struggling towards are ill perceived. I think this is important, and yet it's not. I think this is the goal of life. This should be the goal of life. This is the goal of life for everybody, and why not me then? It seems like a no brainer. And yet, there are issues in my perception and ever eluding goals. So I can never seem to reach them. They're ever eluding. It feels that when I have this, then I'll have peace. Then I'll feel content. You know, this sticky thing, this grasping that we are doing throughout our lives. It feels it will give us something, but it never does. It feels like I'm walking towards something, and yet things keep eluding me. The course of life is determined mostly by forces other than one's conscious choices and deliberate decisions. It feels that I am doing what I'm choosing to do. And yet, how we have so many times spoken about, conditionings, so many masters and mystics, and, like JK, again, J. Krishnamurti has spoken so much about conditioning that you think you are the one making your decisions, but see how the conditionings are ruling you. So here it talks about those forces, and of course there could be more forces. There are so many other forces of nature and prakritic forces that are forcing us here and there. So therefore, one's internal state is characterized by feelings of uncertainty, insecurity, conflict, anxiety, and tension. So Manmeet had joined us late, so I just read this paragraph once again for her so that she can have some context. So in the stage of striving, during which human beings try to come to grips with the problems of life mastery and self mastery, while still living predominantly in the vital consciousness. Vital is vitality, the emotions, the feelings. Life is more or less a blind struggle, a groping towards ill perceived and ever eluding goals. The course of life is determined mostly by forces other than one's conscious choices and deliberate decisions. And the funny thing is, and yet it hurts, right? Like it's not even mostly our goals, it's not even mostly that we care about them. And yet, once we decide to touch something, to pick up something, to reach somewhere, to be someone, when we are not able to, it hurts as if, it was coming from me. And I've seen it so beautifully unfold so many times that there were suggestions, things that I didn't even want. And somebody said, why don't we try this or you try this? And before I know it, I'm doing it. And when I'm unable to, and something doesn't happen, that brings, oh, why did it not happen? The disappointment, the hurt. And it's very interesting when you look back and see that, but I didn't even want this. So why, how does it matter? But the way we live, it matters. So therefore, one's eternal state is characterized by feelings of uncertainty, insecurity, conflict, and anxiety and tension. So we have all seen this in our lives. I think we'll get more context as we move further. If there's anything, feel free to unmute and share anything. So we are still in the introduction, which is about to be hopefully, I don't know, over. So till now, we had read about physical consciousness, operating from that, and vital consciousness. And in the next paragraph, it talks about mental consciousness. It says that it is with the growth of the mental consciousness that one progressively learns to cope with the various internal and external stresses which every individual experiences in life. The stage of coping, which is urged in by the use of the power of reason and the exercise of mental will in the governance of life, is characterized by a certain sense of direction, inner ease, security, and confidence. So we're just reading about, what the psychologist Menninger had shared about human behavior. So it spoke about the vital, talked about the vital consciousness when we're operating, how we end up with uncertainty, insecurity, and the likes of conflict, anxiety, and tension. But with the growth of mental consciousness, we develop coping mechanisms and we are able to, cope with the stresses, and we are able to basically that uses the power of reason and the exercise of mental will in the governance of life. And that kind of the direction is towards inner ease, security, and confidence. So I'll pause here. It's a bit still incomplete because we are still reading it, but if there's anything, we can talk about that. Oh. Yes, Manmeet, please.
I'm not sure I understand this blind chase. What if the blind chase is for the self mastery? If the blind chase is for the purpose, I I can only talk about myself. I don't think I'm running behind any sort of a materialistic goal per se. I'm looking to find myself. I'm looking for a purpose that is, um, that and ever since I'm doing that, I'm not able to put my mind on any of those so-called materialistic goals I used to have. And because I'm unable to do that, and I don't have uh, the other purpose, I'm in so much of pain because I don't know what to do with my time. I'm sitting empty and I'm all the time reminding myself this. And when the day takes over and the life takes over, I'm just rolling around, not knowing what to do.
I don't think it's just talking about materialistic things. It could be anything. And yet, because what I see with my eyes, I have so much confidence in me. But what I usually see, that is what I have seen in my life, that what I see, what I perceive, what I feel is very limited. So it is like a blind struggle because I'm not perceiving things fully. I'm just not, if I'm just, depending on myself, I don't see all my strivings are blind because I might not be running after materialistic goals. And yet, the way even inwards, if I'm trying to find my own self, just using my own help, that usually is like a blind struggle. And I think that is why the importance of gurus, the masters, the mystics. This, that beautiful song, I was just hearing it today, and it had that line that, Neherwa Humko Na Bhave. There's this beautiful thing by Kabir ji, beautiful song. And there's this line that only a guru can show me the path. I remember there is this thing in Ramayan, I think when I had started listening to it by someone. Before we began, there were some couplets, and in one of the couplets, it was like that, that Meri Ma to Kuma thi, like my mother was not a good, she wasn't equipped to be a good mother. So there was this prayer to the divine that you are my mother, you show me the right way to live. So, yeah, that I know, I don't think I answered what you were saying, but our aims here are not the right aims mostly. And then slowly, once we are done, how again, Kabiji says, and we use this a lot, that, दौड़त दौड़त दौड़िया जहां लगी मन की दौड़ थके मन स्थिर भया तो वस्तु थौर की थौर. First, I run after materialistic things. I realize I don't get anything. They don't give me anything. Everything is transient. Then even the other goals that I start to pick, because I am picking them without any assistance, without any help, they too just keep eluding me.
What would you call a guru? What if I don't believe in a guru? What if I believe that it's me who's the universe? I am the universe is me. Kan kan mein khud ko pana. I see a universe in you. I see a universe in everyone. I see a universe in my own self. What if I don't believe in a guru?
See, we all believe in something, right? And with it's like either somebody doesn't believe in anything or anyone. And if that person says that I don't believe in a guru, I don't need a guru because I don't need anyone, then it makes sense. It's like beautiful. But talking about myself, I don't need no one. I need a lot of ones. So why not choose the one who has seen the way of the destination where I want to reach? And you know how Sri Aurobindo says that, a guru or a master just lights the torch. He doesn't show you the way, you show the way, you see the way. So for me, guru is anything or anybody who teaches me something, who makes me reflect, who makes me introspect. So anybody if I was honestly today believing that the universe is me and I am the universe and the universe is in everybody, then I don't think I would be in pain if I actually lived that truth. And the fact that I say that I am in pain, either it means that I am not identifying with the universe in that oneness that I think I am, or I need somebody's hand holding who can show me the way. And like I said, we do believe in something. You believe in, you believe in the thought that you don't want to believe in somebody or a guru. And that's another thought. I have another thought that I believe in a guru. So they are just thoughts. But if my thought is taking me towards peace, and if your thought is taking you towards pain, just reflecting here. So maybe one can change the thoughts, one can experiment with others' thoughts. I remember, I know it's out of context, but I remember that, Monica had basically introduced me to Acharya Prashant, and he was a very big light in my life. He still is. And I remember the first time I met him, at that time he didn't have a million followers. We were just like, I don't know, very limited people, and you could meet him easily. I had gone to one of the places to meet him, to talk to him for an hour. And he said, yeah, how can I help you? And I remember I said that I don't know how you can help me, but when I, say, look at Monica, I see that she doesn't walk. I see that she's just flowing and I want to flow like her. And that was it, right? And he had a big smile on his face and he said, Aao betho. So anything that takes me, anything that catches my fancy, if somebody, how there's this in that movie when Harry met Sally, that like Sally seemed to be having such an exotic reaction to something she ate, and the other person on a different table just said that I'll have what she's having, because it appeared that she is in delight, right? And that person was looking for delight. So just saying that if my stubbornness or my belief in what I am believing is not taking me towards peace, I must look at what I am believing and have the courage to say that no, this is not working for me. I might need to change my ways. Yes, Ritu.
Yeah, so I'll just add a little bit here. I think in my case, a little bit reason why I thought I needed a guru was that, I thought that I had read a lot of books and listened to a lot of videos which were showing me the spiritual path. And I thought I'm so capable and intelligent, efficient to follow all those paths that I can do it on my own. Okay, now that I know the formula, yes, I can do it. But then in practical application, when I tried to apply all that, I would fall down, I would fail, I would again go back to my same behaviors and patterns and reactions towards people and towards my own self, how I would deal in those situations. Again, I would be miserable. I mean, I knew that doing this would make me miserable. but I would again find myself in that situation, maybe in a different way, but again miserable. So what I think the guru somehow helped me in this was in surrender, in thinking that yes, maybe I thought that 100% of the things are in my control, I can handle, I can do it. But then when I kept on failing and falling, I felt that the guru helped me in in believing that there is something beyond me also, which kind of controls this situation. So I can just try on my part and let it be. I can't push myself to that limit where I thought I would be successful, because in materialistic terms, if I would think, okay, I have to do this, I would do it and I would feel fulfilled and success. But here, wherein I am working on myself, there were so many day-to-day instances wherein I try to do something, but then I fail. So I think somewhere or the other, I had to kind of, tell myself that there is something else which is going to help and take care and show me the way. So that is where, in my case, the guru came in handy, that, okay, I had to surrender to something which was beyond my control, and that was the guru.
Yes, thank you, Ritu. So basically, we have a tendency to just say it's like just me, and this is it, and I get it, I'm not getting it, and I'm trying to get it. And like you so beautifully said, that the guru expands the view. It says you're not just this, look at this, you are this. And that helps in kind of taking the focus away from yourself to see that life is so much bigger than I can ever perceive it to be. And that is why the word, I guess, blindness was used there as well, that I don't even know what all I'm not able to see because I'm blind, because I don't have the capacity by myself, left to myself, to do it myself.
Ma'am, if I have to add something to what Ritu ma'am was talking, so in if I'm just sharing my experience that you know, like I think last week we were discussing about how it is, how if I have a bad habit for 29 years and now I want to change it, it's going to take a while, right? But then when I in the process of changing it, I sometimes face some hurdles in the form of falling down, and failing to adhere to the new rules, adhere to the new way of living. So what happens at that point is that so at that point there is this frustration that builds up, and it feels like, okay, this is all in vain. There is no point in trying. For me, that is when the guru, I'm able to see, like, I see a friend in you, I also see a guru in you. And when you say that, okay, it's a habit that went on for 29 years, so it's going to take a while to look, to kind of get rid of it. So to look at the bigger picture, and to look at me from a like outsider's view, I really need a guru, and to tell me that, okay, you know what, I know that you failed, but you are in the right path, and you're going to be there at one point of time. So at least for in my case, I really feel that I need a guru. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, if anybody is willing, we can read this. Otherwise, I'll read. Mastery as conceived by Menninger, represents a further stage of psychological development when an individual no longer feels preyed upon by internal and external stresses and meets the challenges of life with a clear sense of purpose and with poise and serenity. I think we can just go over this again, that mastery, this they spoke about self mastery. Usually how I live, and we all know that, we've discussed it before, that everything to me is external, right? Somebody says something sweet, I am happy. Somebody says, I'm kind, again, I am happy. Somebody compliments, I'm overjoyed. And the same person tomorrow, they say something mean, and I'm like, how dare they? The weather is good, I'm happy. The weather is bad, I could be depressed. Small thing, big thing, anything outside has the capacity. I have given it the capacity to take a hold of me, to let it affect my moods and my whatever not. And yet, if I am the master, if I see that, yes, there is this emotion coming to me, but I am not this emotion, I'm bigger. If this thought is coming to me, it's paining me. And yet, I am not this thought. The thought is in me. So, mastery, as conceived by Menninger, represents a further stage of psychological development. So right now, I'm preyed upon by the internal and external stresses. So, when I'm not preyed upon anymore and meets the challenges of life with a clear sense of purpose and with poise and serenity, so that in itself is a huge place for me to be, where there's a clear sense of purpose, a poise and serenity, and nothing, not everything has the chance, the opportunity, the freedom to just come and shake me, to move me, because I know I'm bigger than these things. So, moving on, from the viewpoint of yoga, psychology, from the viewpoint of yoga psychology, such a state of mastery pertains to a deeper consciousness than that of the outer being described previously. So the outer being is not capable of having that mastery, because the outer being is just looking at outside, right? So this pertains to a deeper consciousness. The deeper consciousness is that of the inner being, the person within who is concealed by the outer being and whom we discover progressively with inner growth. So the deeper consciousness is that of the inner being. So first, here in the introduction, they told us about, the outer being, our attitude, then outer being. Now they are slowly taking us towards the inner being, telling us because the outer being is incapable of taking us where we need to be to have mastery on ourselves. Then we talk about the deeper consciousness, which is that of the inner being, the person within who is concealed by the outer being and whom we discover progressively with inner growth. Taking a pause here, if anything. And so moving on, so as we had read, it says behind the physical, the vital and the mental part of the outer being, there is an inner or true physical, an inner or true vital, and an inner or true mental, which constitutes our inner or true being. So there's an outer physical and there's an inner physical. There's an outer vital and an inner vital. There's an outer mental and an inner mental. And behind, sorry, and behind both the outer and inner being is the innermost being called by Sri Aurobindo the psychic, the individual soul supporting the mental, vital, physical, and psychic evolution of the being. If it confuses you, I would say not to go there. It's just a basic introduction. We'll be taking, touching everything in more details when we start with the chapters. But it just, it's very, like it might sound complicated, but it's very simple. It says that there is the outer being, which we all know, right? The physical, mental, and our emotional, our vitality, vital. Then there is the inner being, which has the inner physical, inner mental, inner vital. And then there is the innermost being, which Sri Aurobindo, in his terminology, just to distinguish it, says it is the psychic being. So that's the innermost being. So we basically rule by the outer. We are often disconnected with the inner, and we might not even realize there is the innermost, the way we live. So that's just introduction to the terminology. So just hearing. Mastery from the viewpoint of yoga. Mastery from the viewpoint of yoga psychology begins when an individual no longer completely identifies with the physical, vital, and mental personality of the outer being, learns to live progressively in the deeper consciousness of the person within. So, even the beginning of the mastery, if I want to master myself, my thoughts, my feelings, what I'm going through, my life, it says if we are at the level of outer being, it's not even a possibility. It begins when an individual no longer completely identifies with the physical, vital, and mental personality of the outer being and learns to live progressively in the deeper consciousness of the person within. The attitudes of the inner consciousness from which such an individual looks at and reacts to everything in life are the subject matter of this book. So why is this book, why was this compiled? So this is the attitude of the inner consciousness from which such an individual, so the one who's looking for some self-mastery, so this book is for them, to bringing them in touch with the inner consciousness, and that is the purpose of this book. So that's amazing. So cultivating these inner attitudes, which are partly illustrated in table 2, is an effective means for growing into the deeper consciousness of freedom and mastery. Yeah, so yeah, pausing here in case anything. So table 2, we have already read it, but above and yet let's just go through it. Table 2 talks about the inner attitudes. So the attitude towards life. Search for the purpose and meaning of life, pursuit of inner growth, life governed by what is felt to be the truth of one's inner being. So the outer desires are no longer taking that hold on me. To search for the purpose and meaning of life, pursuit of inner growth, life governed by what is felt to be the truth of one's inner being, inner attitude towards oneself and others, looking upon oneself and others as more than a physical, vital, mental being, as a person, towards work, a means of inner growth, self offering, and self consecration. So why am I working? Because it's leading towards inner growth. It lets me offer myself. I am consecrating. So that's the attitude towards work that one can have. An attitude towards difficulties, viewing difficulties with equanimity as opportunities for inner growth. Yes, Chagan. Okay, it is. Yeah. You know, the usual response for my pain, my challenges, my problems is like, I cannot handle it, right? It's like, why is this happening to me? What is this? Where do I go from here? It's usually the first reaction is that of a victim consciousness that, see, poor me, see what I am going through, among other things, obviously. And yet, every master, every mystic has spoken that how the challenges are taking us toward the inner growth, because we are so inert that unless there is a huge challenge, unless the slap is really tight, unless, the dream is a nightmare, I will not wake up. I will not change my view from outer to inner. Once I know and I recognize, I can see that, okay, why is it happening to me? I shift to what is it trying to teach me. So it appears I'm going a bit fast, and yet because it's just the introduction, it seems okay to me because we'll be delving into these with more detail. So I will read ahead unless somebody unmutes and shares anything.
I can read it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so a, a purely animal existence governed by the vital consciousness represents, in Menninger's terms, the stage of striving, popularly described as the animal's struggle for existence. Though human beings are endowed with mental consciousness and have therefore learned to some extent to cope with the problems of life, most human beings are still primarily ruled by the vital consciousness and therefore lead a life largely characterized by striving and struggling, very similar to that of the animal. But unlike the animal, the human being, as previously stated, is a discontented creature, for he knows in the recesses of his inmost being that he has the power to free himself from the bonds of animal existence and become master of his destiny. Should I continue, ma'am?
Yes, you can read it fully.
Yes. As the mother remarks, the vast majority of men are like prisoners with all the doors and windows closed, so they suffocate, which is quite natural. But they have with them the key that opens the doors and windows. This book offers help for using the key.
Thank you, Jagan. I know you were driving, so thank you for reading. So just going over the lines again. So it spoke about, how the purely animal existence, which is governed by the vital consciousness. This thing, क्यों नहीं हो रहा, कैसे नहीं हो रहा, यही चाहिए, in general that, restlessness, this desire, this movement represents in Meninger's term the stage of striving, popularly described as the animal's struggle for existence. So, though human beings are endowed with mental consciousness and have therefore learned to some extent to cope with the problem of life, most human beings are still primarily ruled by the vital consciousness and therefore lead a life largely characterized by striving and struggling, very similar to that of the animal. I'm remembering that, I don't know, a few weeks back when we were reading The Heroic Heart. I know, I think Ritu, you had commented also. We've spoken about, how our lives are no different than the dogs, right? That first they're looking for the sun, sitting in the sun, and as it gets warmer, then they're looking for the shade. They just want something to eat, nice, something, someone to pat them. And she had questioned if we think we are living any different. Yeah. So, but unlike the animal, the human being, as previously stated, is a discontented creature, for he knows in the recesses of his inmost being that he has the power to free himself from the bonds of animal existence and become master of his destiny. There was this very beautiful line, I'm not able to remember where it was, where it kind of said that my longing or my pain for the one, or for the highest, is the proof that the highest exists. People ask proof, they ask क्या प्रमाण है कि है भी के नहीं. Because I long for the highest exists. It's my longing is the proof. So here again, it's saying that because I know I am more, that's why I feel more discontent, more stifled. Because I know I have and yet I can't touch it, I can't hold it. So I have the power, it says, to become master of my destiny, and that is why I struggle when I live a constricted, confined life. And lastly, as the mother remarks, the vast majority of men are like prisoners with all the doors and windows closed, so they suffocate, which is quite natural, but they have with them the key that opens the doors and windows. So if one is feeling, how the introduction is kind of making that case, that if one is feeling that one is struggling, suffocating, if one is living a very close life, which is bothering them, if it's not bothering them, then so there's absolutely no point and we would not even be here. But if it's bothering me, if I'm feeling suffocated, because I am not meant to live in closed doors and windows, so, here would be the key, in the words of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, that Mr. A.S. Dalal has compiled. So yeah, so I will not go further today. So we have completed the introduction and the first chapter, looking at life and circumstances, we'll be starting next time. So it covers the power of attitude, determining power is within, the right spirit, seeking to know, listening to the inner law, the ordinary view of spiritual life, the spiritual view of the ordinary life, inner state and outer circumstances, the meaning of circumstance, living within, meditations on circumstances. So these are the 11 main headings that will be covered in section 1, looking at life and circumstances of this compilation called Looking from Within.
I'm really excited for the for the next part, because like you were saying, this book is the key to coming out of that vital that vital consciousness. But the challenge that I was facing is that to an extent I didn't even know that I needed the key. I was just constrained within, and I was okay. I thought maybe this is how life is. But the thought of even needing a key to unlock something, that is interesting. So yes, I'm excited.
Thank you. Gagan, I like your excitement. I was just pulling up this. It was a very big thing, but just a small one is coming. This is by Rumi, that one of the marvels of the world is the sight of a soul sitting in prison with the key in its hand. Like the key is in my hand, I just don't know I have it. So, yeah, anybody who shows that I have the key again would be the guru. I just have to go back to what Manmeet was saying. So we'll end here today. I have a limited window for the back also. So thank you so much for joining in. And before we leave, just taking 2 minutes to thank Grace for the opportunity to have such a session, to have people around who resonate with these things, who can take us out of the limited that we think we are, and praying for expansion and openness, and wishing that may all beings be well and happy. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tarun.